We hear so much about the Middle Ages, from what we see in films like Monty Python franchise. What do we actually know about the life and actual experiences of people living in these medieval times? Would we even survive a day living in their kind of lifestyle? For this video, we're going to list some crazy facts about the Middle Ages. You might want to watch this video before you tell your friends that you were born in the wrong century. Before we go on, you already know what to do. Like this video, subscribe to our channel, and ring the notification bell to keep in touch with us. We have more similar videos coming for you very soon. Now, without any further ado, let's begin. Number 1. Heavily pointed shoes. When we examine the shoes that were trendy in Europe throughout the 14th and 15th centuries, we can see that most of the styles were truly high-end in the purest meaning of the word. Interestingly, the beaked shoes which were popular then were so sharp that we're not exactly sure how individuals managed to walk normally at the time. The length of these lavish shoes was usually determined by the wearer's social position and was strongly tied to ceremonial clothing requirements. Number 2. Football, minus the safety rules. Would you imagine that soccer was once forbidden in England? Given how popular football is today, you might guess that the sport back then was substantially different from today's games. It kind of resembled savage combat. There were no hard restrictions as long as no one died. A professional game ball was literally a pig's bladder filled with air. Even the team sizes were not set precisely. Not only was the sport completely free for everybody, but the audience also commonly went out of line. It wasn't unusual for a crowd of people to surge into the court and enthusiastically riot. Things got so out of hand that King Edward was compelled to abolish football in the early 14th century, although this was merely seen as a ploy to keep men focused on practicing archery. However, King Henry VIII, yes, the king with 6 wives, managed to bring back the fun sport in England, which got his constituents celebrating. Wild times. Number 3. They actually knew how to preserve food. We know that moisture promotes the rapid microbiological development of bacteria, which is found in all fresh foods and causes them to rot. Salting was the most frequent method of preserving nearly any form of meat or fish. Salt was also employed in combination with other preservation techniques, including drying and smoking. These were done with meat and fish, but how about fruits and vegetables? The Middle Ages weren't so different than what we use today. For example, methods such as pickling foods, confits, sweet preserves, fermentation, and of course, freezing and cooling. It all started during this age. Number 4. Luxurious plates were actually killing the upper-class people. If you were wealthy enough, you would most likely have a great set of gilded dishes. However, lead and other toxic substances, such as mercury, were mixed in producing these supposedly luxurious dishes. When you put salty or acidic items on your plates and bowls, the glaze starts to deteriorate, and the metals begin to leak into your meal. As a result, as they dined on their fine china, upper-class people were progressively poisoning themselves. Pretty ironic, isn't it? Number 5. Medical practices weren't as scientific as they are now. That is something you would expect back in the Middle Ages. Catching a sickness in the medieval era was considerably worse than getting ill now. Antibiotics were non-existent. There was no chemotherapy administered to cancer patients, and doctors did not sanitize their hands prior to interacting with patients. Doctors' expertise in medicine at the time was usually incorrect and completely useless in the current medical practice. Sometimes patients were even diagnosed with the mere help of an astrological chart. Bloodletting, purging, or drilling holes in the patient's skull to release pressure were seen as reasonable treatment plans. Remarkably, these therapies not only did not work, but they even accelerated the death of some patients. Number 6. Cemeteries were popular hangout and business spots. Speaking of dead bodies, cemeteries in the Middle Ages were quite busy. Today, cemeteries are peaceful places where families may say their final goodbyes in a safe and courteous atmosphere. In the Middle Ages, though, cemeteries were not merely sites where the deceased were interred. They were similar to public gathering areas with a lot of bustles. Many significant municipal events, like election debates, judicial proceedings, and even live performances, took place in the cemetery's vicinity even at night. Many women claimed to have sneaked into the cemetery to give their services, if you know what I mean. It was less costly than the traditional brothel space. Number 7. Yes, witchcraft does exist. The Middle Ages are a period of mystery, with a fascinating cast of characters living in Europe's dark, bleak days. Several chapters of the medieval narrative feature the culture of magic, notably witches. Witches were associated with the devil, not just because they were considered enemies of the church, but also because of their nightly sabbats. These sabbats developed a reputation for devil worship, further cementing the link between Lucifer and witches, and thereby obliterating the group's chances of social acceptability. The witch craze, also widely recognized as the witch hunt, occurred in medieval Europe between the 15th and 18th centuries, during which thousands of citizens were persecuted for the crime of witchcraft, which the majority of those accused seemed to be women, and roughly half of those accused being murdered as a result of their alleged crime. Number 8. Bloodletting was a popular treatment plan. Bloodletting, which has been practiced since antiquity, still was popular in the medieval era considering the importance of normal blood flow to human health. Medical doctors of the period thought that by physically extracting a sick human's tainted blood, they might heal them. It made no difference if it was a common cold, typhoid fever, or even the plague. Bloodletting was used to eliminate potential infections from the organism in almost every health illness. However, a discernible therapeutic effect can only be established in a small number of clinical images. Over time, this method became obsolete due to the lack of scientific groundings. Number 9. It was not as easy to become a knight as one would think. Involvement in huge tournaments, combat glory, and unqualified adoration from the general public. All of this is now connected with a medieval knight's usual lifestyle. What's the issue, though? It wasn't as simple to rise to the rank of a knight. To attain this lofty position, one had to be of noble origin. One must also be wealthy enough to obtain firearms, armor, and horses. At the age of 8, affluent parents sent their kids to aristocratic residences to work as pages. The boy then became a squire at the age of 14 after completing a grueling apprenticeship. He will then be knighted at the age of 21 if he successfully broke past this dispensable phase. Obviously, it all seems a lot more challenging than going to high school and finishing your education at the university. But the rewards kind of work out actually. You could be the next King Arthur, or be one of his knights. Centuries of children could be reading tales about your great conquests. That seems pretty tempting. If given a time machine, would you travel and live back in the medieval times? Those were pretty harsh times, and you might not live past your prime. But if that's your type of fun, we won't judge you. Keep the discussion going in the comments section below, and talk about what you think life was like in the Middle Ages. Make sure to like, subscribe, and ring the notification bell to stay updated on our upcoming videos. Thanks for watching!